Hey guys, it's Eddie and today I am back with another movie review for you all. Now today's movie was sort of advised for me to watch by someone on Tumblr, and I decided to make a review out of it anyway just because I thought it was such an interesting film and I'd never really heard of it before it was suggested to me. So I thought for anyone who was like me and hadn't heard of it before, I would sort of get it out there by doing this review. I don't know. But yes, today I am reviewing the Gregg Araki film Mysterious Skin, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Brady Corbet, or Corbett. I'm so sorry, names aren't my strongest point. But this film, now spoilers first of all, I don't think I can properly discuss this film without sort of revealing what happens because it's such an integral part of the film. You'll understand what I mean when I get more into it, but yeah, just be aware, spoilers. Don't watch this review if you don't want to know what happens. But this film follows Neil, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Brian, played by Brady Corbet, who are, teenagers who both experienced traumatic events as children. Neil was abused by his baseball little league coach, and Brian also seems to have encountered something quite devastating in his life, but he seems to think that he was abducted by aliens as a child, and he spent most of his early and late teens trying to figure out exactly what happened to him, and if he was really abducted, because that's what he seems to believe. Now, this really is a harrowing, raw portrayal of the repercussions of child sexual abuse, and this is shown very clearly by taking us through the lives of these two boys as they grow older, because we are introduced to these boys in the sort of beginning of the film through these events, through these traumatic experiences that they have encountered, and we see how these events then have an impact on their later lives as they go through the film. Now, this film isn't really full of surprises, I don't think. Its tension is built really very cleverly, and even through the sort of way that the camera is positioned, who's it focusing on, the way that the characters move towards the camera, it's all cleverly sort of juxtapositioned so that you are already made to feel uncomfortable, particularly in the beginning part of the film when we're starting to see, what happened to these boys. And yeah, you're made to feel uncomfortable from the get-go, I feel. I don't think that the direction and the story is concealed enough or sort of mysterious enough for you to not sort of cotton on to what's actually happening and what's happened to these boys. Now, that doesn't make these boys' discoveries in the film any less devastating to the audience. I think it's still completely arresting and heartbreaking. I shed a little tear by the end of the film because it just absolutely grips you. And the reason why it grips you is because throughout the film you've seen how absolutely consumed these boys are still with what's happened to them. And I think that's why this film is so important, because it shows the total repercussions of child sexual abuse. The fact that it's completely consuming in these people's lives, in these boys' lives, and it doesn't go away. As the decades pass, as the years pass, it still has a completely central place in their lives. They can't forget it. They spend their whole life trying to either run away from it or work out what's happened. In the case of Brian, he's repressed it so deeply that the actual discovery of it is just completely devastating, and I think that has a complete and utter arresting effect on the audience as well, despite the fact that Araki's direction doesn't conceal the truth from you as the audience. He still puts it out there for you. You're still sort of half aware of what's going on. You still have this inkling of what's happened to them, especially in Brian's case where it's not as immediately obvious, but it doesn't mean that you are any less emotionally detached from these characters because you've seen them throughout this sort of 1 hour 40 minutes of the film having to cope with what's happened to them. Now, I think that the direction was sensitive and everything felt very carefully placed in revealing the harrowing truth, especially in the case of Brian, Brady Corbet's character. The cutaways between the two boys, because for up until the very last 5 or 10 minutes of the film, the boys' lives remain completely separate, and they're completely different people. But the cutaways and the sort of presentation of these two boys' lives in sort of separate synchronicity with each other is really, really clever. And I thought everything felt like it was done, you know, for a reason. The flashbacks, they were all placed really, really cleverly in the film. And I thought that, you know, it just felt like a puzzle piece that was just effortlessly put together. Even as I said, you know, you didn't have to do much working out to guess what would happen to them. The direction of it, which was really more for just seeing how these boys remembered the events themselves rather than the audience having to guess what happened to them. It felt like it was so sort of cleverly done, and that's what I liked about this film. Now, this film is really not for the faint-hearted. It's candid, very candid, and extremely uncomfortable at times to witness, because I think it doesn't hold anything back, let's just say. Obviously, there are very clever cutaways and there are sort of very clever fade-outs and stuff like that that do, you know, keep us, you know, the really, really harrowing parts concealed. But this film tends to go as far as it can, not only with the scenes that touch on the actual abuse, but also sex scenes and the like. The fact that it handled it this way, that it was so blatant and so sort of pushing of boundaries, I think was extremely difficult to do without it seeming just over the top. And I think that it should be praised for handling a subject that is as important as child abuse is to be spoken about and, you know, to be made aware of. The fact that it held it in this manner and presented it in this manner, this candid way, I think should really, really be praised, because it's very difficult to do, and I think that this film had a lot of guts to do it. So yeah, I have nothing but praise for the way that this film presented this issue, even though as an audience member it was really, really quite hard to witness at times, but it was interesting, thought-provoking, and, you know, really sort of, yeah, it was interesting nevertheless. But yes, I will warn people that, you know, you should be aware of what you're going into, because I just thought this was a coming-of-age film. I really should have read the premise on IMDb or something, I don't know. I think I might have skipped over the part that it was about child abuse or something. I just didn't read it in my head. But when I came to it, I sort of was hit with the full force of it in the film, when it was shown to me within the first sort of 5, 10, 15 minutes. So yeah, it's a really, really hard subject to swallow, and I think that people should probably be aware of it before they sort of just walk into it like I did, because I'm an idiot. I just thought, right, I'll watch it, and yeah, it was quite difficult. But yeah, I would just advise that for people. Now the performances, I thought they were different. The main lads, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Brady Corbet, they were both different. They were both exquisite. They showed in different ways, from sort of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's sort of carelessness and sort of, you know, sort of carefree attitude, you know, all the risks that he took in the course of the film, to Brady Corbet's sort of hunched over, furtive anxiousness. He was just obviously riddled with the anxiety of not knowing what had happened to him, the repression of the events that had occurred on that night. And it just showed, but they both showed perfectly in different ways how much the abuse had consumed their lives and their entire being. And I thought that these actors just at the forefront of the film. Obviously the rest of the supporting cast were brilliant, but these two actors, you know, did really, really well in their roles. I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt especially, they just fit perfectly into the film, and I think that they were really, really important and instrumental in bringing the sort of pain, anguish, and just absolutely heartbreaking repercussions of these sort of childhood events into the sort of forefront of the film. I thought they were both brilliant. I really can't sort of fault their performances for the film. They just mixed effortlessly into the film, and I thought that this film was absolutely incredible. I didn't expect what I got from it. I will say that I probably won't ever forget it, just because it was such a hard-hitting, dramatic coming-of-age film, one of which I've never seen before. I've never seen a film of this kind that is so candid and so raw and so open on such a horrible, horrible subject. But I must praise it for the way that it handled the subject matter. I thought it just went in full gusto, and I think that's probably what is needed occasionally, and yeah, I thought it was brilliant. So to give this film a rating, I'd probably give it 5 out of 5 stars. It wasn't the most... It didn't have a lot of rise and fall. I think a lot of the tone of it was sort of the same, but I do still think that the sort of cutaways of the two boys and, you know, wondering how their lives were going to come together and for the truth to be revealed really did actually keep you on your toes. So that kind of doesn't really make me able to drop this rating down to 4 stars. I think it was undeniably a fantastic film. Individual, different, and really, really hard-hitting. So I'm really glad I've watched this film. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I hope you see this film if you're at all interested. Obviously view with caution, but I think it's quite a rewarding experience because it's really quite thought-provoking and interesting. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this review, and remember you can always request movies for me to review by commenting below or messaging me on my Tumblr. The link is always in the description. But that is it for now. Hope you've enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you in the next. Bye!